Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rekakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there on four corners of the earth to claim this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rekakadash, Brakatum. So, pretty much though, as you know, a fake ceasefire, well, it's tit for tat, while everybody's refilling, getting ready for the ground invasion. Because this ground war is impending, and that's what they're doing, is just refilling. And at the same time, Iran's rearming too, you know, no doubt about that. But like everything else, we got some tit for tat going on, as well as what's happening, how you manufacture the whole thing, picking up from yesterday, is that you just shut down the oil worldwide. Well, Iran has actually responded and said that, well, if you're going to block us over here, which is totally illegal, by the way, then we can inform the Houthis, Yemen, to block the Red Sea port as well. You see how this is going on? The global shutdown of oil petroleum, right? Because for some reason you can't make petroleum out of Venezuela, right? You know, all the excuses for why it just stopped. It just completely stopped. You know, the pumps, they don't have petrol. They are all out, right? You see where it's going, you know. So, you know, this guy gets into the headlines. Lets you know who's controlling
officially confirm that whatever kind of ill-fated fake ceasefire agreement Donald Trump was claiming to have brokered with the Iranians last week has been a complete and total failure, just like everything else related to America's involvement in this illegal war for Israel. Iran is now saying all bets are off, all negotiations are finished, while meanwhile Trump is claiming that the Strait of Hormuz is now under an American blockade. I want to be clear about this. This is not a blockade that's actually meant to block the Strait of Hormuz to assert any kind of legitimate military dominance. This is a blockade that has been set up to intentionally lead to more confrontation, to further escalation, and more dead Americans. And the deaths of those Americans will be used to lay the pretext for all-out war and the launching of the U.S. ground invasion of Iran, which I've said from the very beginning is baked in. It's exactly what these people have wanted from the very beginning. Not just the beginning of this war as you know it, but from the very birth of the Greater Israel Project.
Yep.
Since the second that the United States, under the command of Israel, began striking Iran, a ground invasion was baked in. It was only just a matter of time. We've seen Americans killed thus far. We've seen American planes shot down out of the sky. We've seen attempted ground operations in Iran completely thwarted. The attempted Iranian uranium heist. I mean, America is just being humiliated, plain and simple. Donald Trump himself has already had to admit that American ships were unable to penetrate the Strait of Hormuz.
Portrays himself as JC.
And that they had to retreat because the Iranians had it locked down and they were coming at the American ships with everything that they had. But now suddenly we're supposed to believe that Donald Trump is just going to canoe into the Strait of Hormuz and form a blockade and seize control. Yeah, that's not going to happen. American ships will be torpedoed. As a result, some Iranian ships will be hit. Commercial vessels will be caught in the middle of all of this. And the war with Iran will enter its next ultra-violent phase of action.
Yep.
The Americans who are being sent into the Strait of Hormuz right now are on a certain suicide mission. And they've been ordered into that suicide mission, not by the President of the United States or by the United States Congress or by mandates from the American people, but by the Prime Minister of a foreign country.
There you go.
By Benjamin Netanyahu, who Donald Trump is so giddy about impressing with his latest illegal act of war that he went on the Fox News channel to brag about how much stronger all of this American human sacrifice has made the Israel-U.S. relationship. Watch what he said.
Look at the Israeli relationship. Look at the incredible partnership we have on this. And, you know, as Bibi Netanyahu said, we're the big brother and they're the small brother. And, you know, it's been a very effective...
Great Satan and little Satan.
What we've done literally in a matter of days, within 3-4 days.
Yeah. It really just has been quite the amazing partnership, hasn't it? I'm sure that you're thoroughly thankful for such an amazing partnership that has led to, over the course of decades, countless young American men being fed directly into a meat grinder and ultimately to their deaths. But for the righteous objective, of course, of consolidating Israeli control and the expansion of Israeli territory. And in exchange for that blood sacrifice, well, some of the wonderful things that we have received in return amount to, let's see here, the biggest terrorist attack in all of American history, a seemingly endless flow of illicit street drugs from Assad-trained cartels, the deployment of mass-murdering genocidal bioweapons in the form of safe and effective vaccines that, by the way, don't seem to affect Ashkenazi Jews, which is kind of curious, I guess. What else here? Unfettered third world migration, an occupied political system full of pedophiles. I'm just so thankful because the list goes on and on. Really, it's endless. So yeah, it's been one hell of a partnership that has led to the selling out of American sovereignty and the murder of the American people. What's not to be thankful for? And when Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel is America's little brother, like Trump just recounted in the clip that we just watched together, what he's doing is snidely reminding all of us that Israel's defense solely relies on the United States. He's saying, yeah, we own your media apparatus, we own all of your compromised politicians, we control your military, we're a snot-nosed, fake little country the size of New Jersey, and we just love to rape kids and kill kids and bomb kids. And when we do all of the raping and bombing and killing of little kids, we're going to need you to step in to defend us. We're going to need you to do our bidding for us because, you know, we're like your little brother. You're supposed to look out for your little brother. You're supposed to keep him out of trouble, even when he's wrong, okay?
You know, I metaphorically spoke about that too, just not too long ago.
Is his way of sending a very public message to say, hey, BB, we hear you loud and clear. We are here to step in and do whatever you say, because in reality, Israel isn't America's little brother at all. Israel is America's power top.
Yep.
Trump has turned our country into Israel's favorite power bottom, and now the United States is bent over the barrel getting unrelentingly raped into oblivion by a bunch of Eastern European wandering settlers that call themselves Jews.
Yep, you mean the
Iran
Kaslars?
is not the last domino meant to fall.
Amalek?
The only domino in play right now is Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and Lindsey Graham and a whole lot of others are openly moving to seize additional territory as quickly as possible in both the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Right now, as we speak this evening, April 13th of 26, Israeli troops are continuing their assault on Lebanon, sacrificing civilians and children to Baal, and erasing villages that have stood for thousands of years from the map. And when I say erasing villages from the map, I mean that literally. Because I don't know if you saw this or not, but as Israel moves into Lebanon and publicly plans to seize 10% of that country's territory, what we know to be really true is that eventually they will seize all of it, Apple is deleting Lebanese towns from its GPS app in real time. And pretty soon they will be replaced by Israeli settlements. And that'll be happening in Cuba as well before long if Trump's saber-rattling is to be believed. And why wouldn't it be? He's already proven himself to be a warmongering death cultist, and Cuba is just another Latin American country for Trump to check off of his list of greater North American conquest. And if things are going too poorly in Iran, well, look for the Trump administration to make an even more aggressive play in Cuba than they're already publicly planning to make, because they're going to have to try to find something to hang their hat on here. They're going to have to try to produce some kind of a propaganda victory to make this nonstop military campaign or campaigns all around the world look like they're actually capable of accomplishing something, anything. The process of taking down Cuba has already begun. The United States has been obstructing trade around that island for months now, and the Trump administration has already started launching attacks against their favorite targets, civilians. When they went into Iran, they kicked things off by double-tapping a school full of little girls. And on their way into Cuba, they are kicking things off by killing babies and sick people who can't fight back by cutting off the power to hospitals. They're attacking the Cuban infrastructure with unconventional methods, and they are forcing the Cuban people to suffer in an effort to squeeze out the Cuban regime. You know, that's another thing. Every single government on the face of the earth that these people don't like is a regime. If Benjamin Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson and Larry Fink want to take you out, they'll accuse you of running a regime and then use the actual regime, their occupied United States government, to whip you in the line. Which is exactly what Trump says is about to happen. Look.
And Cuba will be next. What did you mean by that exactly?
Who will be next?
Cuba.
Yeah, Cuba's going to be next. Cuba's a mess. It's a failing country, and they're going to be next. Within a short period of time, it's going to fail. And we will be there to help it out. We'll be there to help our great Cuban Americans out who were thrown out of Cuba. In many cases, their family members were mutilated and killed by Castro. Oh, Cuba's going to be next, yeah.
We're going to be there to help them out, he says. We're going to be there to help them out. We're going to be there to help them out, probably even bigger and better than we've ever helped anybody out. In the history of helping out, it's probably even more bigly than how we helped out the Iranian people by liberating them from, you know, an oppressive regime that forces them to wear garbage bags. Have you seen this? They make their people wear trash bags, their women over their heads, and they chop up little babies. We're going to help them out, the people of Cuba, the wonderful people of Cuba. We're going to help them out. We're going to help them out by establishing a central bank.
Yep.
And, you know, all of these so-called great Cuban Americans that Trump keeps talking about, can I just ask, are these Cuban Americans ever going to go back to Cuba after real Americans are sent there to die on their behalf? Or are they just going to throw parties at gas stations and wave foreign flags for a few days, just like all the great Venezuelan Americans did after Trump kidnapped Nicolas Maduro? And speaking of these great Cuban Americans, whatever happened with the Cuban Americans who tried infiltrating Cuba on a U.S. flag boat only to be killed or captured by the Cuban Coast Guard? It was like a modern-day Bay of Pigs invasion. Supposedly they were trying to go into Cuba and foment a revolution to overthrow the regime. Whatever happened to that? Who did they work for exactly? Rhetorical question. Of course, we all know who they work for. They work for the U.S. government, and so by virtue of working for the U.S. government, they were really working on behalf of the Israeli government, kind of like Trump himself. He doesn't work for the people, and the people know that, of course, which is why he was booed and shunned by the crowd at UFC this weekend, a place where he's usually basking in praise. You know, that could be taken, actually, it should be taken as a good sign. Because now the American public are finally starting to show that they are just exhausted with all of this. They have just grown so sick and tired of this geriatric war criminal showing his face in public, pretending to be in control of this country as Benjamin Netanyahu very publicly orders him around like an abused homosexual puppy. And as Trump loses support among the general public, he's also losing support among the influencer class, and just like he always does, now he's lashing out. You probably saw this over the weekend. But last Thursday, Trump made yet another totally unhinged and very long post.
And against Alex, too.
I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think that it's wonderful for Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon. Because they have one thing in common: low IQs. They're stupid people. They know it, their families know it, everyone else knows it too. Look at their past. Look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. They've all been thrown off television, lost their shows, and aren't even invited on TV because nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Now they think they can get some clicks because they have third-rate podcasts, but nobody's talking about them, and their views are opposite of MAGA, or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump. Not hand-flailing fools like Tucker Carlson, who couldn't even finish college. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox. He's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist. Or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question. Or crazy Candace Owens, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man, when she is not, and will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit. Actually, to me, the First Lady of France is a far more beautiful woman than Candace. In fact, it's not even close. Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting
Sandy
victims,
Hoax,
ridiculously
you mean?
claiming that it was a hoax. These so-called pundits are losers, and they always will be. Now fake news CNN, the failing New York Times, and all of the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They're not MAGA, they're losers, just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown. But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength in not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again, and these people have no idea how to do that, but I do. Because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world. President Donald J. Trump.
That's what he said.
It sounds like a pretty typical Donald Trump temper tantrum. This time, of course, it was laced with Israeli propaganda talking points about nuclear weapons and Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, which actually I find pretty ironic, coming from a guy who has sent billions upon billions of American taxpayer dollars to Israel, so that in turn Israel could use those dollars to slaughter kids. But all of this just comes back to the fact that someone, somewhere, questioned Donald Trump. That's what this is really all about. Someone broke free of his cult of personality on one or more issues, and when it comes to Trump, that is a death penalty offense. That's a form of blasphemy. And speaking of blasphemy,
here we go.
That here in just a few more minutes. But at this point, Donald Trump has completely turned on every single issue he claimed to be running for president on. He has completely turned on everyone who ever supported him as a populist America First candidate, the America First populist candidate that he pretended to be when he was running for president as an Israeli agent. And he's just basically left the American people holding the bag. Actually, he's left the American people holding the bag with one leg shoved into the meat grinder. He's been called out for doing so by people who once supported him in the media, even by people who supported him when it was very obviously against America's best interest to do so. And now he's going nuclear, apparently part of warming up to going nuclear on Iran, which is looking more and more likely by the day. But on the topic of this Truth Social post and Trump's latest meltdown, Tucker Carlson, one of the targets of that post, summed it up pretty well in an interview with, I believe it was BBC. Take a look.
I feel sorry for him, as I do for all slaves. He is not free in this moment at all to do what he thinks is best for himself or his country.
What do you mean?
No, he's not free. And we learned that yesterday when Donald Trump announced a ceasefire, clearly with relief, and made its terms, or most of its terms, public. And then that ceasefire ended within 2 hours because Israel intentionally violated the terms by attacking not just southern Lebanon, but the city of Beirut.
Tucker's right. Wow, look at her face. She knows Tucker's right. We know it. Everybody knows that Donald Trump isn't free. He is a slave because Donald Trump is compromised. And he's probably more compromised than a lot of people out there could even possibly imagine, because when it comes to Trump, the compromising doesn't stop with him. It extends throughout his entire family, especially to his wife, Melania. Paolo Zampoli's girl, and according to those who knew them, Jeffrey's girl, Jeffrey Epstein's girl. Let's play the clip.
A new book was published
wish I
yesterday
were
in the US
Jeffrey's
and UK
girl.
entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. It's by a British journalist by the name of Andrew Loney. And it's about the pathetic life of Prince Andrew, but it is also about his connection to Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Melania Trump. And in fact, it contains a passage in which Epstein is quoted.
You know what all this
from an
is?
interview apparently in 2007,
Shameful spewing
where he says that
on
he had
Esau
sex
Edom.
with Melania a full year before Donald Trump commenced his relationship with Melania.
So yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that you're going to start hearing a whole lot more in the immediate future about Melania Trump and her relationships to Paolo Zampoli and Jeffrey Epstein, because Paolo Zampoli's ex-wife, who Trump had deported, has now seemingly decided it's time to break free from her shackles of silence and let the entire world know exactly what she knows about the Trump's relationships, not just with Jeffrey Epstein, but with Ghislaine Maxwell. So yeah, Donald Trump, in every sense of the word, is a slave for a multitude of reasons, culminating in the fact that he was best friends with the most prolific pedophile in all of human history, who also reportedly screwed his wife. I mean, that's even worse than when Harvey Weinstein screwed Gavin Newsom's wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the topic of this Truth Social post, on the topic of Trump's lashing out like an angry little slave, I wanted to bring up Alex Jones. It's kind of surprising to me, it's interesting that Trump mentioned him in that post in the first place, because we all know, everybody knows, that for the past decade, Alex Jones has been completely and totally shilling for Trump, begging for a pat on his big fat ass that just hasn't come. I mean, he even rode Trump's orange micropenis through the roughest waters of the Epstein file release and cover-up, when Trump was exposed beyond any shadow of a doubt as a compromised kid-diddling enabler, as a Jewish slave of the absolute worst order. And now look, how did Trump repay him? Just like he repaid everyone else who stood with him over the years with yet another war for Israel, in which American citizens are being used as cannon fodder, as bait, as a blood sacrifice on the altar of greater Israel, being fed into a meat grinder, so that the very same Talmudic superstate that I warned of on the InfoWars platform 2.5 years ago when I sat down with Alex Jones for that now infamous interview has all come to fruition. Every single thing that I told him was going to happen has now happened. I laid it all out on the table for him. I made it extremely easy for everyone, him and the audience, to understand. And then he spent the entire time that I was in Austin gaslighting me and the audience, to the point that he was even doodling pictures of the star of Remphan, telling me something about how this was really the Seal of Solomon. We have a clip from that interview, T-Dog. Let's take a look.
We have to agree with drag queen story time and open borders and critical race theory and white people are bad, or we're Hitler. I find that very, very offensive.
White males are the biggest threat to our national security. We're told that. White Christian males are a bigger threat than the CIA created ISIS, than the Israel created Hamas. Remember, Israel created Hamas. And I know we've talked about this before, but this is supposed to be one of the most fortified borders on the face of the planet.
Well, see, that's how I would criticize the leadership of Israel, not Jews in general. Who stood down? It's confirmed. Why'd they do it? Why'd they found Hamas? Yeah, now you're talking.
So if they formed and funded Hamas, at the end of the day, who did that? Where does all of the money come from? You say that Israel's a super rich nation. Where does it come from? Who gives it to them? How do they earn it? Have they ever fought alongside of us in one single war? Nope, they haven't. Have they killed Americans? Yep, they have. Have they carried out war crimes against America? Yep, they have. Why are they our greatest ally? Why can't I ask that question without being an anti-Semitic Jew hater?
I'm happy to criticize any government, any power structure or mafia. But we know the Italians, had a lot of mafia in this country. We don't blame people with an Italian last name because there was a big Italian mafia. That's where I'm going with this.
I am merely pointing out that at every level of our bureaucracy, that we swear an allegiance to this nation state, that we send hundreds of billions of dollars without question, that we bomb people on behalf of this country, that will protect their borders and not protect ours, that our media is 100% funded by these people. Our media, our criminal media, forced people to die and is still forcing people to die every day. What is Fox and CNN? Same ownership. We have been gaslit and programmed about Israel for decades because of the media programming. Because people can't turn off the fake Fox News channel, and people can't turn off, CNN or MSNBC, however you believe in this fake two-party representative government system. Well, I'm a conservative, so I'm going to watch Fox. Not knowing that they're funded by the same people. How do we stop them from killing us? How do we stop them from having unfettered, unquestioned sexual access to our children? How do we stop them from forcing injections into our children and into us? Why do we?
And you said that's Jews doing that?
No, I'm saying, how does the American people?
Well, what I'm saying is, all right, Stu Peters is our guest. He wanted to come to town and interview him for a show, and then we Kanye West flashbacks. I'm not saying you're baby Hitler, but Stu, Trump's daughter has Jewish children and is super pro-Israel. But Trump's good, and they want to kill him. Come on, that's what I'm saying. It's more sophisticated.
I didn't say Trump was good. I don't know what's going on with Trump. I know that the Trump of 2015 is not the Trump that we're seeing right now.
So you don't support Trump?
I don't think Trump is a solution.
I think Israel is a powerful, rich country that has a lot of people around the world that support it, and I just see it as one more of these big modern Western states. It is spiritual, though, because there's this obsession with Israel. I mean, it's like I mean, when I had Kanye West in here for 4 hours,
See how he's gaslighting?
And then we'll move on to other subjects.
When Stu was on the show.
What you think about,
This is where it gets interesting.
This was like, I'm on here, you're not stopping me, Jews.
These people control our
Well,
military.
Israel's not the only place with dual citizens.
But listen, these people control our military-industrial complex. These people fund Lockheed Martin and Raytheon so that we can go and make missile testing sites in Ukraine. Why are we fighting a war in Ukraine? Has Congress declared a war? No.
So that's Jews too.
So if Congress hasn't declared a
So
war,
the whole
funding
Ukraine thing's Jews too?
Yeah, he's trying to make him anti-Semitic. Right there.
So are you saying if Israel disappeared, our problems would be solved?
a lot of them, yes.
I don't censor you. I thought we'd talk about the election and
I want to.
all this. We just spent 50 minutes on Jews. So we can do 24 hours like Kanye West.
Alex knew that I was right. Very obviously, he knew that everything that I was saying was truth and that it was correct. But yet still he gaslit me and gaslit his audience. And even more than that, he made the very conscious decision to spend the next 2.5 years calling me evil, calling me demonic, calling me a liar, banning me from the InfoWars network, and then working behind the scenes to have me blacklisted across the entire new media like some kind of a Jewish subversive snake.
Yep.
You almost got to wonder if it's genetic. But seriously, and more importantly, this isn't about me. Alex sold out his entire audience.
Yep.
He sold out his people, just like
I
Donald
stopped
Trump sold
watching
out
it
his
because
people,
of his
including
support
Alex
for
Jones.
Trump.
And when Alex Jones realized that loyalty is a one-way street for Donald Trump, that's when he made his 180. And before we move on here, just for the record, since this entire Trump falling out took place, I haven't heard anything from AJ in the way of an apology. He's been groveling hard to Candace Owens after joining Dan Bongino and calling her an evil demon, saying she was going to hell and that she was a liar because she questioned Kash Patel and Erica Kirk's official Tyler Robinson 30-6 narrative. But as for me, I haven't heard anything from him in the way of an apology, and definitely not in the way of an invitation for an in-person return to Austin, Texas for a public apology. But there's a reason for that, because this is a man who doesn't stand on principle.
Yep.
This is a man who doesn't stand on conviction. It's a man who doesn't stand for anything. So here I sit, Monday, April 13th of 26, and I guess we could start the official Alex Jones apology clock right now. But anyway, there are real issues at hand here because as all of this is happening, there is a very obvious, very demonic energy around Donald Trump. And not just around him, but all up over him, through him. Because
Amalek,
he's not just attacking journalists, he's attacking the Pope. He's attacking Christianity itself. He's attacking God. Over on his Truth Social page, which you could more accurately describe as a Jew social page, for the past 24 hours, it seems like all this guy has done over there is attack Christians. Seemingly a hobby of his dating back to at least Resurrection Sunday when he wrote that profanity-laced post ending with "Praise be to Allah." And then yesterday, Trump came after the Pope for not supporting his slaughter for Greater Israel and the Antichrist and the beast system, writing in part, quote, "I don't want a Pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want a Pope who thinks it's terrible that America attacked Venezuela." End quote.
He wants a Pope that he can control. A Pope that smokes
attacking the
dope.
Catholic Church over the COVID scandemic shutdown that he initially put into place as the commander-in-chief of Operation Warp Speed.
Yes, he did.
And then on Sunday night, Trump attacked the Pope again before he boarded Air Force One, parroting all of what he wrote in his Truth Social post. Watch.
He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart, and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a Pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a Pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. So I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
And by the way, that came after Trump also shared an AI image of himself to his demonic social media platform, portraying himself as Jesus Christ, performing a miracle on a man who looks eerily, suspiciously similar to Jeffrey Epstein with a beard, as soldiers are ascending into heaven in the background alongside warplanes and explosions, and adoring onlookers who are actively worshiping him. This is the kind of demonic spiritual sickness that is being peddled to the American people through the White House, as the White House is occupied by a man who, when he's not mocking Jesus Christ or getting Americans killed or molesting kids, is performing Jewish Talmudic rituals with Shabbat Lubavitch, who also molest kids, in tunnels, and with Howard Lutnick, who took his own kids to Epstein Island.
Yep. This is what this fucking faggot does, right? This king of Sodom does. He's a sodomite. He is one 1,000% Amalek.
How much more clear can Donald Trump make it that he hates Jesus Christ? This is the synagogue of Satan at work, defiling the United States of America, defiling Christian civilization through a so-called president who portrays himself as Jesus Christ while using captured Christians to kill Muslims to build a third temple on behalf of Jews to fulfill satanic Talmudic prophecies and usher in the Antichrist. I mean, there is absolutely no way that anyone out there who calls themselves a Christian could stand behind this.
But they are.
Christians
That's
are being
a funny
weaponized
thing.
against Muslims on behalf of Jews by a man who openly commits blasphemy by mocking Jesus Christ, while at the same time installing Noahide blasphemy laws over the people of the United States to eliminate your First Amendment right to free speech and make it illegal to question the Jews or worship Jesus Christ or spread the gospel, to question God's chosen people. How much longer are people going to go along with this? How much longer before the people see through this wedge that has been placed between Christians and Muslims and collectively pick up our swords to fight our common enemy? That's what needs to happen. That's what Sneeko proposed on his stream last night. Watch.
It's time for real Christians and Muslims, everybody, it's time for going to unite.
So you see the image of him portray himself as
Do you understand that
JC.
the enemy is not Muslims? Do you understand that the terrorists are not Muslims? Do you understand? Do you see Trump?
Insurrections will happen. Yahweh Shai spoke of it.
Is he putting his hands on Jeffrey Epstein? This looks like Epstein. Trump is committing the greatest sin you could possibly commit. Trump is disrespecting the Pope. And then he posts on Sunday, right after he said, praise be to Allah. Right after, on Easter Sunday, he says, praise be to Allah, open up the effing strait. He disrespects the Pope a week later, and then depicts himself as Jesus, as God.
So there you go. You know, he says, I am none, and there is none beside me. Just this fierce king and cruel lord already fit the descriptions of both Isaiah chapter 19 and Isaiah chapter 14. You know, where he said, I will send into heaven, I'll be like the Most High. Well, he did create the deep space, or what do you call it, the Space Force, right, as another branch of government, you know, to ascend into the heavens. Why? Because he knows who he is, and he's ready to fight Yahweh Shai and the angels. Openly. Openly, he said we must reject these prophets of doom. Openly. You know, he acknowledged who we are in his own way. He acknowledged who we were. And denied us, of course, because of course, you know, he's definitely with the Israeli state 1,000%. He is Amalek, and he's drawn into this war. He ain't no fucking victim. He's Amalek himself. He's an Amalekite. You can see him wear that fucking small hat himself. Not to mention, one of the greatest pedophiles of all. Right along with them. Why? Because he is one of them. Ofcom demands tech platforms fund the UK's internet censorship regime, you know, and like everything else, though, you know, they are going to eventually shut this down because you see what's happening over there, and that's in Mother Babylon. So imagine what they're going to do with Daughter Babylon. It's a matter of time before it reaches Daughter Babylon, because you already know that Trump has already declared publicly we must reject these prophets of doom, acknowledging who we were in his own way. He's acknowledged who we were. Meaning that he's going to come against us. Duh. Of course we knew that. Ofcom now sends a bill for policing the internet directly to the companies being policed. And the meter just started running. There's something magnificently British about building a bureaucracy so brazen that it can police speech across the internet. This is the latest chapter of the UK's Online Safety Act, where Ofcom flicked the switch on its fee machine and told the world's biggest tech firms to cough up. The deadline to register has come and gone. The meter is running from 2026 April 1st to 31st of March 2027. Bills land in September. So, like everything else, the law requires Ofcom's operating costs for the online safety regime recovered through fees imposed certain providers of regulated services. Pay up, then shut up. You know? And you even heard, you know, so-called, you know, Trump even say that, right? You know, just shut the fuck up about the fucking eggs. I'm fucking tired of hearing about them fucking eggs. You know, now he's fucking, you know, raised the price on everything else. Raised tariffs on everything. You know? I mean, there's no end to this devil. King Bibi slams morally weak on European Holocaust Remembrance Day. Israeli terrorists criticize the continent's NATO members for refusing to back the war against Iran. King Bibi says Europe has forgotten the lessons of the Second World War and the Holocaust, as he criticized European nations for not helping the Israeli state fight against Iran. Many European countries, including the UK, France, and Germany, have rejected U.S. President Trump's call to help unblock the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran closed to enemy ships following the U.S.-Israeli attack on the 28th of February. Speaking at the Holocaust Remembrance Day, on Monday, King Bibi described Europeans as ungrateful and argued that by waging war against Iran, the U.S. and Israeli state were defending Europe. Oh, yeah, they're defending Europe? Okay. The only Hitler is King Bibi himself. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastard. And this is coming from Dollar Vigilante, which you get a lot of information from as well. So he has a lot of sense of humor too. You know, a little different than, those other two guys. But, so what's the name? Jimmy Dore and, the World Alternative Media. Not that one, but what's the other one? Josh, I think. No, not Josh. I can't think of it, but anyways, he uses his own humor, but nonetheless, so, talking about what's going on in the world, right?
Got all the kids working, child labor, just like all of us anarcho-capitalists always talk about. Lots of work going on. We're getting ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And,
apocalypse. They're revealing.
So,
Edom and Yahushua in his return.
Over the weekend, there was
Which is what Revelation is.
in Pakistan, and between the U.S. and Iran. Funny thing is, Donald Trump, the art of the deal, that deal maker, I can close any deal. Here's where he was this weekend. Where is the Secretary of State at a UFC fight and not involved in negotiations? There he is with Donald Trump. Hey, you think pretty big negotiations. This is one of the bigger things that's happened in the last...
Gotta promote UFC on Paramount Plus.
The start of World War III. All those negotiations, World War II, you'd have like Churchill and Stalin, they'd all go smoke cigars. But at least they'd go. Trump just goes to a UFC fight with the Secretary of State, and he sends over J.D. Vance. The same J.D. Vance who visited the Pope. Then, the next day, the Pope died.
Yep.
Who was, good friends with Charlie Kirk. And he got shot, they say, in the neck, and then he hosted his show. Or the guy who campaigned for the Hungarian Prime Minister, Orban. Then he lost to, a Zionist guy just the other day. And they sent J.D. Vance over to do the talks. This guy who's just an idiot. Not that it matters, it's all fake. But, big surprise. He's like, you can't make a deal. Just can't do a deal.
Yeah, let's make a deal. No deal.
So oil actually went up quite a bit over the weekend because of that. Went up to about 103. That's on the paper markets. In the real world, it's $150. Of course, the big talk is about how to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which was open before they did all this stuff. And then they came out and said, well, even if we did open it, you can't use it. Yeah, it's the Truman Show. Okay, now tell them we can't find the mines. And then right after that, Donald Trump said they're going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, which was already basically blockaded by Iran. So there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to. Now that they're failed. But the only point that really mattered, nuclear, was not. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's kind of funny that they say the reason they can't come to a deal is because Iran won't stop giving up their ability to enrich uranium for nuclear bombs, which, drum roll please, don't exist.
Yeah.
See, this is all a show. Now, it's a show with ramifications.
Well, it's a big show.
But it's all BS, all of it.
It's Trump shit.
But it's pretty incredible to see. And this is all part of the agenda as well. You had Iran blocking the strait for a month and a half. And to get back at them, the U.S. is now blocking the strait. You see what's going on? They're putting in Agenda 2030. And they couldn't get people to go with the carbon credit stuff, so they're just destroying all of the oil supply now.
Yep.
But at least one person spoke up on Twitter against all this. Donald Trump said, "Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell." That was a few days ago. That's another genius 5D chess move. Don Zhu, break an enemy blockade by blockading their blockade. Oh. Open the Strait of Hormuz, or I'm closing the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, you tell them. And here's most people waking up Monday morning to realize we're in the blockade of a blockade of another blockade. And then in response to the U.S. now blockading the Strait of Hormuz, Iran said, if Trump carries out his Strait of Hormuz blockade, Iran will respond by taking control of the Bab el-Mandab Strait through the Houthis and block it. Yeah, Iranian military imposes its own blockade on every port in the Middle East. No vessel can use these ports. The threat continues until U.S. blockade is lifted. The U.S. blockade on Iran has begun.
Emphasized that the Iranian armed forces are defending the nation's legal rights as both a natural and legal duty. The spokesman reaffirmed that Iran's sovereignty over its territorial waters will continue to be strongly protected. He also made it clear that vessels from the enemy nations will not be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, while those following the Iranian regulations will still have access.
You're starting to get it yet. This is all a show.
Yep.
To shut down all the oil. To cause, and this is what I've been saying this for a couple of years, the next big financial crisis, the next big crash, will likely be starting with World War III. That was one of my options. Also cyber attacks, also COVIDs 2.0. All three of those things are happening right now, by the way. But the biggest one is the World War III. And I said they're going to have to do something to set it off. Well, this is it. But hardly anyone can see it. Even, like, most people can't see it. Like, even people I know, they're pretty smart. They're like, no, Trump, he's trying to do this deal. No, he's an actor. Why don't they get...
Yeah, he was at UFC this weekend.
He's got a pentagram on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's in the World Wrestling Federation Hall of Fame.
Yes, he is. Yep.
You get all these people who've been watching History Channel their whole life.
I remember that one.
This military's trying to do that to this military. Maybe at the lower levels, at the higher levels, this is all an agenda. You'll see very quickly. It's only been a few more weeks. Because those oil ships travel at the speed of a bike. Like if you said to me, hey, Jeff,
just what, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right?
Just imagine that, right?
Now World War III card.
Let's say I really don't even need to sleep. I go 24 hours a day. How long is that going to take me? Go all the way up. Well, first of all, I can't really because there's no direct way on land. But let's say there was a bridge. I have to go all the way across the Pacific Ocean, all the way across Europe, all the way down through Africa, or I guess across Africa on my bike.
They're coming to
How long does that take? A couple months? Yeah, that's how long it takes. And all that's happened is, the reason the world looks fairly normal at the moment is all the ships that left the Middle East, before all this stuff happened, they shut everything down, destroyed most of the oil facilities in the Middle East. They're still en route to where they were going. They're just, the final ships are arriving in the next few weeks all over the world. So everyone's like, so this guy BitChute is crazy, so it's going to be insane. Everything's fine. And besides, they're not telling us on the television programming that there's anything to worry about. I know, they're setting everyone up. It's going to be huge. Huge. Especially now that it's like triple blocked. Everything's blocked. Iran blocks Hormuz. Behind him's a lady with a gun. U.S. blocks Hormuz. Behind him's a guy with a gun. Iran blocks Bab el-Mandeb. Up in the rafters, U.S. blocks Bab el-Mandeb. I don't know why most people can't see it. This is obviously an operation. Everything's blown up. Russia, most of their oil facilities are blown up too. This is going to be huge. Massive. And like I've said for the last few weeks, it's so bizarre that no one knows what's going to happen. But it's very clear. It's going to be chaos, especially in Europe. Europe is going to be insane. Actually just knocked out another pipeline going to Europe. I'll get to that in a second. There's so many things to cover. This is a massive operation. There's also going to be massive opportunities. Like, if you ever were going to subscribe to the Dollar Vigilante newsletter, now is the time. There's going to be huge opportunities. Oil's still under $100. It went over 100 a little bit for the last couple of days. But now it's back under. It's like 98 or something again. Still a huge opportunity. I wrote all about it in the last Dollar Vigilante dispatch that went out almost 2 weeks ago. So you can go get a free subscription, dollarvigilante.com/free trial. And you can go read that. And you can also, because it's a 2-week free trial, you'll get our next issue, which is coming out on the 15th.
So you get the idea, right, that something bigger is going on. A global economic crash, which what we've been saying, that that's going to lead more than anything else to shutdowns everywhere, right? Can't get enough gas at the pump, shipments ain't coming in, etc., right? But nonetheless, though, there was a recent photo, which you saw that in the previous couple of videos back, that he's compared himself to JC, right? And now he deletes the image, right? Trump deletes the image of himself as JC, says it's depleted him as a doctor, but plus President claims Iran now begging for a deal after peace talks fell through. Oh, they're begging for a deal now. Can you believe that shit? So, like everything else, let's see if there's anything here.
50% off. So if you're more comfortable paying $40 a year instead of $80, there's a little hack attack on this supposed free speech platform that to me is anything but free speech. Period. Full stop. Just not real.
So a famine of the word is around the corner too, with all the shit that's going on in Mother Babylon. Fact, the UK.
When we talk about narrative management, and I know it's ironic that I'm pulling these from tweets. Take a good look right here. The stats for cancers in the United States, for some strange reason, this have not been updated by the CDC since 2022. Why is that? A little weird?
Well, because the vaccine had caused most of the cancers that are going on now. But you couldn't say that. One time you couldn't even say the word. Or on YouTube. If you're watching me on YouTube, which like everything else, for the longest, for a good 3 or 4 year period, I was not able to even post a video on YouTube because of the censorship, especially, just saying that, C-19 was a complete and utter hoax. You couldn't say shit like that. No, that's medical misinformation. But now, you're able to get around it a little bit. From Fiestas to Ferraris, Britain's fuel shop has rich and poor stealing petrol. So, like everything else, they're not able to get petrol oil. UK motorists face record-breaking fuel costs at the gas pump as the Gulf energy shock ripples around the world, all being done on purpose. British newspaper, The Times, cited new data from 500 UK filling stations showing the daily value of stolen fuel jumped 27% from February to March. The spike coincided with the start of the U.S.-Iran conflict, which set energy prices sharply higher. This means around 1.2 million worth of fuel is now being stolen every week across Britain. So a lot of people are stealing the petrol, okay? That's how fucking chaotic it's become. Now it's what you would call black market. So there's a black market going around for petrol fuel. If there's a black market over there, you know that they'll have one over here too. Easily. Especially once it starts hitting Babylon. But, like everything else though, Babylon will be the last to fall. It's the last Trump, if you will. Fill her up. Record armada of tankers bound for U.S. Gulf to load oil. An unusual large number of crude oil tankers on the open seas has the American Gulf Coast as a destination as the ships are redirected to load cargoes bound for markets around the world already experiencing shortages. So, it looks like Babylon the Great is there to save the day. This is only going to last so long, but that's what the illusion is, right? That the saviors, Babylon, is going to save them, right? Foreign buyers are voting with their ships. American energy means stability, strength, and freedom from the Middle East blackmail, the president posted on Friday. This is the illusion that Trump is giving everybody. President Trump said Saturday on social media that massive numbers of completely empty oil tankers are now en route to the U.S. to purchase American energy. So there you go. It's only going to last for a little while. So it's a dick move, but nonetheless, though, you can see where this is going, right? That They're going to fucking hate Babylon. They're all going to turn on Babylon. Xi says global order crumbling into disarray as Trump turns up pressure campaign against China. Choke point after choke point, the administration is methodically building a portfolio of assets that are stacking against China. The Panama Canal, which is only the exit route for oil and gas from the Gulf of Mexico to China, Venezuela, and our oil used to go to China. Karg Island and Iran's oil, which used to go to China, and Strait of Hormuz through with Iran and all Arab countries' oil to go everywhere but mostly China. So like everything else, you see, indeed it is a war against China because, you know, you're going to be fighting over who has the rulership. And you can see the illustration there. The international order is crumbling into disarray. Xi told Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez in Beijing he used a Chinese expression indicating that not only chaos but also more decay. So, indeed, they are fighting a war with China. And they're going to be going to war over Taiwan. You know, that's a rumor of war anyway, so, you know, you've heard it. You've heard it many times during the Biden administration that they were going to go to war over it. Iran says damage caused by U.S.-Israeli aggression estimated at $270 billion worth. Iranian government says the country's preliminary assessment of the damage caused by the unprovoked U.S.-Israeli aggression has reached $270 billion, stressing that the figure may change. So, like everything else, so this is just what the damage has costed. And the only way to get reparations, because you know that Trump ain't going to pay him, is to actually charge for tankers to go through the strait. But you know it's all about shutting down the oil worldwide. That's what this is all about. Shutting it down. Expeding everything to where all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, have to receive an implant in order to be able to buy and sell. That's what it's all about. You know, it's all about a CBDC, or if you will, a stable coin. Iran demands reparations from Arab states. Tehran said Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan, who were all complicit in the unlawful Israeli attacks. Iran demanded that 5 Arab states hosting U.S. bases pay reparations for American and Israeli airstrikes against its territory. In a letter to the UN Secretary General on Monday, Iranian envoy argued that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan allowed the U.S. to use their territory to attack Iran, and in some cases were directly involved in unlawful armed attacks targeting civilian objects. He added that the Arab states should make full reparation to the Islamic Republic of Iran, including compensation for all material and moral damage sustained as a result of their internationally wrongful acts. Are you expecting the U.S. to protect you from what they're asking? Think again. They're only protecting the Israeli state, you dumb fucks. You're going to get what you deserve because you went along with Babylon. You hosted bases there, and guess what? You're held solely responsible. You ain't gonna be able to sell your fucking oil. Fucking piece of shit, right? It's hilarious because, like everything else, though, we're seeing that they're all turning against each other. Trump says U.S. military started blockade against Iranian ports as Iran calls it piracy. President Trump said on Monday that the U.S. military began enforcing a blockade against the Strait of Hormuz as Iran denounced the move as piracy. CENTCOM said it wouldn't block ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz that aren't linked to the Iran, but such vessels would likely be blocked by Iran anyway, meaning the U.S. move will have the effect of shutting down all transits from the Strait. You know, basically, all business concerning the Strait is going to be shut down. So it's all shut down. So you can see what's going to happen with the other one because Iran's already countered that. A U.S. naval blockade, gross violation of Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity. In a letter sent on Monday to the UN Secretary General and President of the Security Council, Iran firmly denounced DC's latest provocative move, which was publicly announced by the U.S. Central Command on the 12th of April. The imposition of naval blockade in gross violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He stressed that the U.S. action constitutes a clear breach of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter, which prohibits the threat of use of force and represents a textbook example of aggression under international law. But like everything else, though, they don't enforce anything against the U.S. or against the Israeli state. He emphasized that Iran firmly and in the strongest possible terms rejects and condemns the illegal actions of the U.S. He affirmed that Tehran reserves its inherent right with the framework of international law to take all necessary and appropriate measures to protect its sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national interests. The United States bears full responsibility for this internationally wrongful act and all its consequences, including its effects on regional and international peace and security. So, like everything else, just condemning the actions, right? Fearing Iranian escalation in the Red Sea, Saudis pushed Trump to call off the Hormuz blockade. Worry of Iranian escalation that threatens to shut down Red Sea traffic, which is the other half of this, so that's blockade upon blockade. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is asking the Trump administration to back off from its newly implemented blockade. So like everything else, that other half is blocked out. Saudi Arabia is stuck there. They can't sell any fucking oil whatsoever, right? Except maybe up en route through Syria, through Turkey. Maybe. But won't they be intercepted? I don't know. Looks like it's a shit show, but you're seeing that everything's getting shut down. The U.S. blockade took effect, backed up by more than 15 Navy ships, including some equipped to dispatch helicopter-borne commanding squads, which you've seen in a video yesterday. These ships expected to position themselves outside the Strait of Hormuz for fear of Iranian attacks, their mission prohibiting any maritime traffic from approaching or departing from Iranian ports. So there it is. Blockade upon blockade. You will not be allowed to pass. So, it's going to be shut down worldwide. So we'll play some of this.
First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Barcha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And back with some more headlines, as the U.S. is going ahead and initiating this blockade, as they call it, as a result of the, at least what they're reporting as failed talks, or they're saying that the talks with the U.S. and Iran didn't really amount to much because they couldn't agree on the uranium. Basically the U.S. is looking at it like we can't allow them to have a nuclear bomb, so they need to get rid of their uranium enrichment program. And the Iranians didn't seem too fond of that, along with other points of disagreements. But this is the outcome that we're seeing so far. Now there are some speculatory reports that Iran is considering, this offer, but will it even be in time? Should they even go ahead and consider that, seeing that there is already another escalation rising? So, starting off here, it says, U.S. initiates blockade of Hormuz, Trump warns, any Iranian ships coming near will be eliminated. Now, let me show you how ridiculous this sounds, right? They're saying, just read this first point here in the summary. Iran's military says the U.S. blockade on Gulf ports, now in effect, is an illegal act tantamount to piracy, as Trump is also weighing limited strikes on Iran. Trump warns Iranian fast boats will be eliminated. U.S. military says it is enforcing a blockade in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea. Reuters reports. Pentagon says any vessel is subject to interception and capture. So, when we look here, let me zoom in on this picture. You have Iran up here, right? This big piece of land right here. and you have the Persian Gulf, right, southwest-ish, mainly south of Iran, right there, and then you have that little bend, right at the horn of United Arab Emirates, where that is the Strait of Hormuz, that little area right there, and then right on the right side, right, you have the Gulf of Oman. So along with the Arabian Sea, right? So this is where the U.S. is saying that they have started their blockade to block any ships from going in or out, okay, of Iran here, which would also mean in or out of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. And then they're saying this is basically what they're going to do. So now you keep in mind the United States is look at this. This is Saudi Arabia, right? You see this little center area here. You have Saudi Arabia, and then you have Yemen south. Then you have you have Africa, right, which is southwest right here, this big chunk, right? And then you have all this body of water before you even go all the way to the west, okay, where you have North America and Central and South America and Canada. You have gone all the way from where your ass was over there to come to somebody else's region to say, now I'm going to block off this. The Gulf of Oman literally borders Iran's southern border. You're saying, I'm going to come here and rest here and block off any transit that's coming in and out of this area. And then you expect there not to be, retaliation. That's a great provocation right there. And then you're saying any boats that approach it, you're going to target. Because what they're trying to push is that Iran having control over the strait. I mean, it's literally right. It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to here, right? But it's literally right on their border. So them having control over it, they were allowing certain ships to pass through, right? Ones that, as they said, were not in favor of the U.S. and Israel and so on. So they were allowing certain ships to pass through, right? They were charging a toll and all that. Keep in mind, had they not been bombed, they wouldn't have closed the strait in the first place. But that's all old news now. So now Trump is, saying that with the U.S. blockade over here, now you can't get in even to the strait. And if you are in from the Persian Gulf, you can't get out. Because now they sent, what, 15, is it here? Yeah, more than 15 warships, right, deployed to Strait of Hormuz to blockade Iran's oil exports. The U.S. has begun enforcing a naval blockade targeting all maritime traffic entering or exiting Iranian ports and coastal areas, including those on the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, effective today. Now, that is going to affect China for sure, okay, because Asia is one of the continents, at least that when you go back here, they depend on the flow of, exports out of this region, especially with energy. And China has already said, hey, listen, they're gonna keep getting their stuff out of here because they need it. So this is going to cause even more conflict because the U.S., they said they're going to do an impartial blocking of all vessels. Impartial meaning that you're not going to say like, okay, you are an ally, so you can go through. You're a foe, so you can't go through. That's partial. Impartial, so it doesn't matter who you are. So it says here, according to Wall Street Journal and other outlets, indicate that more than 15 U.S. warships have been positioned to surge to the region to support the operation. This includes elements of carrier strike groups, example, USS Abraham Lincoln and its escorts, with guided missile destroyers visible in satellite imagery near the Gulf of Oman. At least two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, such as USS Frank E. Peterson and USS Michael Murphy, and then, basically listing the kind of vessels that they're sending over there. All right, so let's go back to this first article here. So reading this again, right, U.S. military says it is enforcing the blockade in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea. Reuters reports, Pentagon says any vessel is subject to interception and capture. And you're going to have a lot of nations that are not going to be happy with that. In fact, you have some that have already spoken out against this. Interestingly enough, you would think that this would be, maybe from ones that are nations that have been known to oppose the U.S., but no, it's actually coming from the opposite. Okay? Pundits review breakdown of Pakistan talks where the gaps were enormous, yet Iran's foreign minister says the sides were inches away from an Islamabad MOU. Israel-Hezbollah fighting persists on eve of planned Tuesday talks in Washington between Israeli and Lebanese officials. So, I mean, there's the information for you. Like I said, that blockade is that's going to be another escalation right there. Because now, even if Iran was to say, okay, you can go through the strait, now the U.S. is there saying, U.S. allies loudly reject Trump's scheme to blockade Hormuz, quote, not getting dragged in. Now, what's also interesting is he can very well say, well, hold on. When I was calling you to come and help us open the strait, all of you said no. And now I've sent ships here, and now they're blockading it, and now you got a problem? Now you want to open your mouth and say something? No. Now I'm in control of this thing. The United Kingdom and several other countries rejected Washington's plan to impose a blockade on Iranian ports and target ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, which has gone into effect Monday, that is today. Prime Minister Keir Starmer made clear his stance that we are not supporting the blockade in a fresh interview with BBC Radio. He emphasized that the UK is not getting dragged in to the US-Israeli war against Iran. Oh, but guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen. That's the whole point of the prophecy in Jeremiah 49. The least of the flock shall draw them out. They're saying they're not getting dragged in. Watch what happens. Just keep watching. They're gonna end up there. So regardless of what they're saying, they will get dragged in, whether they like it or yes. But still stated that it's vital that we get the strait open and fully. So, and I think not just the UK, but yeah, Spain as well, right? It says, as fully expected, Spain's government also condemned the US move, with the country's defense minister, Margarita Robles, having said, it's just another episode in this downward spiral we've slipped into, adding that Trump and Netanyahu want to impose rules on the international community, which is illegal, or illogical, I should say, right? And it goes to show you, right, that their power grab is beyond, cold rulership or, basically international relationships. No. They want to be the dominant power. And this is like I said, this is going to draw in more countries, bigger countries, because they are getting affected.
Yep, Russia.
What's also interesting here is
involved.
Trump reportedly planning mass pardons of administration officials before leaving office. And the question is, why? Right? What exactly are they either doing or planning to do, which they anticipate, or he knows it's going to be so bad, but to get them on board, he has to tell them, no, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead with it. We implement this, we do this, we do that. But sir, that's against the Constitution. That's it. Listen, don't worry about it. All right, we're gonna take care of all that. So when you typically when you see things like this, it means there's something very wrong going on behind the scenes. But in order to keep those in his administration continuing to do it, all right, or be on board, you make a statement like this, or you try to reassure them. Right? It says Donald Trump has reportedly promised to pardon virtually his entire White House staff before leaving office. So he's letting you know what we're about to do. We need you to all be on board. And don't worry about the consequences. We'll take care of that. And the radius keeps growing. What started as a quip about anyone within 10 feet of the Oval Office has ballooned into something considerably more sweeping. So keep an eye on that as they start to dive deeper into the draconian end of things. That's going to be, don't be surprised. Okay, remember that he did say this to them, so don't be surprised. Another interesting turn of events here. This is, where is this, Atlanta? Mother effing robot dogs in the mother effing hood. So here what you have is, it looks like it's some might be a private company, maybe that was hired, and now they're using robot dogs as security in this apartment parking lot, right? And it's operated by some operator, who's remote controlling it live from wherever they are. Residents in Atlanta are staring down robot dogs patrolling their own apartment parking lots with live foreign operators apparently calling the shots through the machines. So I'm going to play this video real quick so we can hear it.
Now they got the motherfucking robot dog in the motherfucking hood patrolling the apartment. What the fuck type of AI shit it is? What the fuck? He look like he gonna bite your ass.
Hello. Hello? How are you? Where are you at?
It's the first time.
So, what y'all got the robot dog in here for?
To watch the people so they don't take stuff.
Oh, sorry. So we're actually like the robot security dog here.
So, what y'all got to tell us?
Everything is being monitored and recorded.
Hi.
So this is how it starts, right? And it sounds like it's all fun and games. But when you see these during the time of martial law, they're not going to have this little, hey, how are you doing? No. Don't be surprised when you see them mounted with actual guns. Okay, lethal. And they're moving around patrolling, and then they're letting off shots. Along with the drones, along with the actual humanoid robots. This is a robot dog. She also have humanoid robots. Those are robots that stand, they have hands, they look like humans. And they've developed some that can actually run like freaking professional sprinters. The difference is they don't get tired. So it's all funny and it's fun and games now, right? But this is how it starts. So this is like, it looks like it's some private security company or something they hired. That's just what it looks like to me. But you have companies like Boston Dynamics, and they're just one of many, that are developing actively this merging of artificial intelligence and humanoid or just robotic technology. So when you start seeing these patrolling streets, when they declare martial law and they have the curfews, and you start seeing these but with guns mounted on their back, they start firing off warning shots at your ass, then you'll see what why they got them in the hood. And speaking of which, lastly, you have here the FAA green lights laser sentry guns to combat attack drones in U.S. airspace. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of interesting here, and this is interesting because of why they basically gave the green light on this, right? Meaning whatever so-called threat that they're trying to combat with this, they're not really trying to sound a loud alarm on this, but they have been reports about this, which at least they're claiming to be drones, right? Drones either sent from or let's say Iran-backed drones. Okay, let's put it that way. The Federal Aviation Administration has given the green light for U.S. military to deploy high-energy counter-drone laser weapons in U.S. airspace, adding a new, low-cost layer of protection against the rising threat of kamikaze drones. But rising threat of kamikaze drones from who? Where? Okay. Oh, matter of fact, hold up. We got some more breaking. Let me put this up on here real quick. So we'll come back to this. Matter of fact, let me just wrap this up. There was a part in here I did want to read right down here. It says the statement did not address whether the agency had determined that the high-energy lasers pose no physical risk to aircraft, or whether the safety administration was based on how the lasers were being deployed. But FAA determined that the risk would be minimal even if the laser came in contact with an airplane. That's all cool. Now look out, here it is. In this paragraph, the decision paves the way for broader use of these 20 to 30, 35 kilowatt class laser weapon systems along the southern border to combat drug cartel drones and one-way attack drones. These threats have caused alarm at the highest levels in Washington, especially following the use of drones by Iran in the Gulf area to target data centers, civilian infrastructure, and U.S. military bases. Now remember, not too long ago the FBI came out talking about warning California that Iran could be potentially launching or plan to launch drones to basically attack right off that coast. So they're talking about what cartel, drug cartel drones that that's not what they're worried about. Okay, they're using this either in preparation for a false FF or for some threat that they're just not trying to sound the alarm for. So there's these are the actions they're taking. Now, why would you? This is not cheap, right? It's not free either. You got to go through a whole process to get this green lighted or get this passed. So if there's no threat at all, everything is all sweet and dandy. Why now? And why would you go through this whole process to set this up? Anyway, this just popped up here. Let's take a look. So it says China has issued a strong warning to U.S. reinstating that China has an energy agreement with Iran and its ships will not be intercepted. Chinese Defense Ministry. Chinese ships continue to move in and out of the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. We have trade and energy agreements with Iran, which we will respect and abide by. We expect others not to interfere in our affairs. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz and has opened it to us. So you see why this is an escalation? Because if the U.S. is blocking the Gulf of Oman, which this is controlled by Iran, it should be controlled by Iran, or at least, as it has been, because it's literally on their border, and they have the power to close it or open it. So China says, we made a deal with Iran, so we're getting energy. Our ships are able to go through. Now, you have become another obstacle, and you're basically trying to now, it's not like now it's a matter of whether we jump in to help Iran or not. Now it's a matter of us protecting our interests because you are now an obstacle, a hindrance. What was the whole point of making a deal with Iran and being able to get our ships to go through if now you, who have no business in our deal, come here and say, well, too bad, they can't go through, we're going to intercept them. So look out, and don't be surprised if you start to have some back and forth now involving China and any other parties here that are in a similar situation, due to either some Chinese ships that are intercepted or some back and forth between those two parties over there with the U.S. because that's gonna once again, let's go back to that warning, right? What did they say? They strongly issued that warning, that strong warning to the U.S. because now this is direct conflict with the U.S. because they're the ones who are issuing this blockade. Okay, so all these things are happening, and as it says in the second chapter, though it tarry, referring to the vision, these prophecies, wait for it, for it will surely come, it will not tarry, right? Which is to slow down. So these things we're seeing happening, they've been declared from the beginning. But now is the time when they're manifesting. Now is the time for them to be fulfilled. This is Isaiah chapter 46, verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me. Declaring the end from the beginning. So how do we know the things that are going to happen in the end, or the things that are happening now, and the things that are going to follow after? Because they've already been declared by the Heavenly Father. And He's given us the understanding, right? He had those that it was declared to, via visions and messages. He had them write it down, and now we have the understanding. So we're able to, He's revealed that declaration to us. And from ancient times, the things that have not yet, that are not yet done, that's future, that's prophecy, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. So this is how we know these things are going to continue to escalate, because this is the counsel of the Lord. And man cannot overturn the counsel of the Heavenly Father. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodesh. Until next time, Shalom.
So there you have it, though, you know. Break it down in the way that I have as well, you know. We want to be on point, you know, that you can click on another brother's video and there's something similar. That we're all talking about the same thing, right? You know, that's what it's like to be, you know, in unison, in, you know, if you will, you know, having unity, you know, and that is having the 100% truth, which you can only get through Great Millstone on down, you know. Definitely, we're not divided when it comes to what the MOTB is. We're not divided when we know what World War III is. We're not divided when we tell you that America is Babylon the Great. That ain't anything else. Yeah, the Vatican, which is a small part of the false prophet, has nothing to do with Mystery Babylon the Great. Chinese tanker passes through Hormuz Strait despite U.S. blockade, Canadian military preparing for large-scale conflicts, and much more. So like everything else, it looks like a Chinese tanker was able to pass through, which is, of course, China is already an ally of Iran. But nonetheless, we'll play some of this.
To do outreach and to get on these big shows and these big platforms, if we had the ability to have y'all supporting us by just giving us that follow, that subscribe, it shouldn't matter, but that really, that number matters a lot. It means a lot to us. You choose to support us and what we're...
Thought that was based upon what I read. Anyhow, there's one more. King Baby says war with Iran not over yet. Now taking shot at Erdogan, the leader of Turkey. King Baby boasted of historic achievements in the war against Iran while attacking Turkish President Erdogan in a tweet. So like everything else, you know as well as everything else that Turkey, which is known as Gomer, and all its troops will be prepared for a war as well. Because we know that the Israeli state was not going to stop with Iran. Israeli Prime Minister said on Saturday that the war campaign against Iran is not over yet, while reiterating previous claims about Israeli historic achievements across the region. In a video statement, King Bibi, wanted by International Criminal Court for war crimes against Gaza, alleged that he had received intelligence indicating that Iran was very close to developing nuclear weapons. Same rhetoric. Revealing the 5-week war, King Baby said the Israeli state had eliminated 8 nuclear scientists allegedly linked to Iran's weaponization efforts. Echoing President Trump's remarks that the Iranian regime was at its weakest points. So, turning to Syria, King Baby said its terrorists had reached the peak of Mount Hermon and we're watching over the Jewish community there. So this is where the divide's starting to come against, just pretty much he went against Erdogan himself. Tensions also flared between the Israeli state and Turkey after King Baby took aim at Turkish President Erdogan in a social media post on Saturday evening. Israeli state, under my leadership, will continue to fight Iran and its proxies, unlike Erdogan, who accommodates them and massacred his own Kurdish citizens. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, this is like reiterating what's already taking place. Turkish foreign minister subsequently condemned King Baby's remarks as baseless, brazen, and false, accusing him of attempting to destabilize ongoing diplomatic efforts to end regional hostilities. King or Erdogan has his part too, because of the destabilization of Bashar al-Assad and Syria as a region. You know, he wants Syria just as much. But nonetheless, though, you know, the big divide here. Turkey will continue its efforts to ensure that King Bibi is held accountable for the crimes that he has committed. Statement concluded underscoring the growing diplomatic rift between the two countries, which has to do with the Palestinian issue, which indeed Turkey is on the side of the Palestinians. I got one more video here before I close this out, you know, because this is a city confusion, and there's a video called Time of Mass Confusion, you know, worldwide. It's like, okay, what the fuck? Are we at peace or are we at war, right? So, all prophecy coming to pass right before our very eyes. So I'll put the NLT up here. Habakkuk chapter 2, right? Because we're seeing it in real time. Habakkuk chapter 2, and it reads, I will climb upon the watchtower and stand at my guard post. Then we'll wait to see what the Most High Yahweh says and how he will answer my complaint. You know, we're complaining continually, you know, against Esau Edom, against these rulers in darkness, against being oppressed, right? We're continually complaining about it. We're the only ones complaining about it. Because the rest of 2/3, they're comfortable with it, right? What do you call that, Stockholm Syndrome? Yeah, they're all in that. You know, they're comfortable here. They want to pitch tent here. They want to enjoy Babylon, right? Even IUIC and ISBK is talking about how we're going to build this, how we're going to do that here. But we, the elect, you know, we're not looking for any settlement here, but rather we're looking to get out of here, unlike the others that just were mentioned, right? The Most High said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. You know, that is, have the correct interpretation, 100% truth. The vision is for a future time. It describes the end and it will be fulfilled. If it seems to be slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place and not be delayed. You know, now we're seeing prophecy coming to pass and we're reading it in real time. Look at the proud. They trust in themselves. And their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to their true power, Yahweh, right? So like everything else, though, we know that, you know, the arrogancy of the proud, you know, Esau Edom. And, you know, President Trump, he's not exactly popular amongst the people anymore, not even at UFC, who used to hail him. Now they don't. Wealth is treacherous, and the arrogant are never at rest. They open their mouths as wide as the grave, and like death, they are never satisfied. In their greed, they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many peoples. You know, he's talking about his ambitions of Mexico, of Cuba, of Greenland, and Canada. And, of course, also talking about, you know, all these great things that he already done in Iran. You know, but yet at the same time, you know, can't even stop there. Built the Space Force 5, you know, definitely enjoys oppressing the poor. You know, reinstated ISIS, made ISIS the most horrible fucking terrorist of all, you know, aka ISIS, you know, and still very proud man, right? But their captives will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you thieves? You know, this whole place, Babylon the Great, is based upon thieves and liars, which is actually a song by Ministry, and the lead singer is actually of the tribe of Reuben. Al Jorgensen is the tribe of Reuben, and, you know, pretty popular song by Ministry, if you're into speed metal, called Thieves and Liars, Murderers. You know, and that's who Esau is. He's a thief, he's a liar, he's a murderer, he's a pedophile, and he's all shameful spewing are upon Esau Edom. So hopefully all this has been edifying. Got one more here before I close this out. Then I will say Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, V'Hashem Rakakadash, Wal Abal Babal. Bracha Tom Jehovah Elect. all this fallout is leading towards the mandates for the MOTB, and that will be the next big thing to come of this before the nuclear war takes off. So hopefully you'll be edified. Shalom.
And let's cross live to attorney and human rights advocate Stanley Cohen in New York. Welcome to the program, sir. And first of all, what's the general sentiment in the U.S. regarding the war on Iran? How tangible are the economic effects?
Well, generally speaking, we're not sure if Donald Trump is God or the Pope. Every other day there's a new position. One day last week he played the role of an imam. The U.S. is totally at a loss. There's a 65 to 70% opposition to what's going on, to the U.S. being drawn into this attack on Iran, to being immersed again in an endless war. That makes no sense. That was simply to the benefit of
caught with their pants down, this pedophile.
United States on the
been caught trying to molest your children.
Republican members of Congress by Congress itself. It's a military action that is in violation of domestic law, and it is an attack that is in violation of international law. And the notion of Trump being able to spin, to create, to craft, to lie, to assuage his so-called base is long gone. He's very unpopular. A majority of Americans think he's suffering from mental health problems, that he doesn't know what he's doing, that he's lost, and ultimately we're all going to pay a price, be it through the loss of our sons and daughters, or the loss of other sons and daughters, or through an economy that is collapsing day by day.
Well, frankly, we're a bit confused here on this side of the pond as well, because Donald Trump has said that the U.S. literally does not need the Strait of Hormuz. Then the U.S. does not even use it. Then he said that he's imposed a blockade on it. That's after Iran said it had already closed it. What do you think Trump is trying to achieve anyway?
It started out as another one of his deflections, whether it was ICE agents, got to get away from the Epstein scandal. Now his wife's talking about it. It started out as a deflection, but then it played into his overwhelming ego that's rooted in nothing. We don't know where it's at. We don't know what's next. We have a president who's out of control with significant mental health problems. We have a Secretary of Defense who calls himself the Secretary of War, who has no clue what he's doing, who raves, he commits violations of international law every day by his announcements to wipe out cultures. This is both Trump and the Secretary of Defense. We have Netanyahu finally admitting publicly, we drew Trump in. This is exactly what we wanted to do for 40 years. And now we're going to expand it to go after Lebanon. And is Istanbul next? I don't know. So there is this feeling of
Istanbul
numbness
next.
here. And the best of life, Trump is interpreted as a narcissist who's desperate to hang on, building gold medals and monuments to himself, writing his name on dollar bills, and meanwhile tens of thousands of people, indeed millions, are being displaced, are being killed, are being injured, and the world economy is in shatters. Forever, the U.S. has claimed that we are a guiding spirit for the world economy, a golden sort of shining path for the rest of the world. We're lost.
A golden cup in the Most High's hand, right?
And Trump says that some other countries will join the blockade without specifying, though, and NATO members such as the UK and Spain say they're having no part in this. Why is Europe so unwilling to support Trump right now?
Because they realize he's a ship that has sunk.
Yep.
He's beat up NATO.
Titanic.
Putting aside whether you like NATO or not, there is this agreement that's 70 or 80 years old that has certain requirements. There's no requirement in the NATO agreement that other countries will join Trump or the United States, even though in the past they have, in international war crimes and involvement overseas. The agreement calls for the defense of members. NATO's lost. Europe's confused. No one can believe a word of what he's saying. So, this whole equation among the West and the United States, among Europe and the United States, among the Middle East and the United States, is totally lost. Meanwhile, Israel enters into all these agreements with the Abraham Accords for Gulf states who are bearing the brunt of the assault from Iran as a result of what Israel itself has done. I cannot recall in my life such a time of mass confusion where one day it's up, one day it's down, one day it's sunny, one day it's raining, and people are desperately looking for answers, and from an administration and a president who have them.
Yep, the city of confusion is broken down. Shalom.